How's it going, guys? It's Cole from See-Through Panel showing off The Monkey King by Chaiko, published by Magnetic Press and retailing for $30 US. Before we get too far into it, I'm not going to be spoiling anything too drastic about this book, but I will be talking roughly about the plot and the art, talking about what I did and did not like, and just kind of going over my thoughts generally. So if you're afraid of being spoiled, read the book, come back later, we can talk about it then. Chaiko is not a creator that I have ever heard of before. He writes and draws this book, which is, of course, an adaptation of Journey to the West, the great Chinese novel. I personally have never read Journey to the West. I am just aware of it because I'm aware of the myth of Sun Wukong and his many kind of incarnations in modern media. Like, he's a presence in DC Comics. He's one of the inspirations for Goku from Dragon Ball Z. A lot of mythology around him is kind of just permeated pop culture for a while. I'm sorry if you can hear my dog in the background. So I was familiar with him from that, but I've never read Journey to the West. But I do love mythology, and I love Magnetic Press's books. This has gold foil on the front, the classic rounded corners you get from a magnetic book, and the kind of textured stock on the cover. Gold foil on the back as well. So these are very nice products. $30 for this is just a great price, I think, for a book of this quality. If you're looking for more page count rather than actual print quality, it's only probably about 160 pages per book, probably around 320-ish pages in total. We'll get into that later, why I don't know if that's enough pages. But I got these from backing the Kickstarter by Magnetic. They are on the regular book market for $30, so I'm not sure if they have the same like fancy stuff like the ribbon bookmarks and the gold foil. I think they probably still do, but you can get them that way if you're interested. As far as the actual book, I'm going to start with things I like, because the things I don't like, I'm probably going to ramble on for a lot of the videos. So let's start with just what the book's generally about. Sun Wukong is a monkey who jumps out of a stone after it is struck by lightning. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's struck by lightning. And then he goes on to become the leader of a island of monkeys, who then is trained in martial arts, gains immortality, super strength, super speed, becomes basically on the level of a god. Starts going by the name the Great Sage equal to Heaven, but he's pissing a lot of Heaven off because he's very abrasive. He takes what he wants. He'll take things from people that don't necessarily want to give them. He gets in fights a lot. He picks a lot of fights with gods. And he generally only acts really in his own self-interest. So the first half of the story is his kind of coming to power and getting into trouble and a bunch of antics. And then about halfway through, we get to the meat of the story, which is him being punished and him basically being tasked with helping this Buddhist monk journey to the West to get these, it's basically a MacGuffin without getting too far into the plot. We need to go to the West so the Buddhist can get something that'll basically elevate him and he can become kind of a more deific figure himself. Basically, it's an adventure story where we're constantly on the move, going to the West. We don't know how far it is. And it's just an adventure book with a cast that's growing over the course of the first hardcover. This is our secondary character, the Buddhist monk who takes on Wukong as a bodyguard and disciple, but has a lot of problems with how Wukong operates and gets into a lot of trouble. The art in this book has a lot of texture, a lot of personality. I think the coloring is fantastic. My two favorite things probably about it would have to be the facial expressions and the coloring. I think as a cartoonist, Chaiko excels at really expressionistic faces, really high levels of emotion in all of his characters' faces, regardless of if that's fear, pain, excitement, laughter, stuff like that. He really can express all of those emotions on a lot of characters that are animals. There's a lot of animal characters. Wukong's a monkey, but he is quite human. There's many human characters, but a lot of these demons and gods and things like that are basically animals, and they still show a lot of emotion throughout this book, and I find that really, really fun to read, and it really is engaging when a lot of the characters have so much life in them. Here's some good snarky facial expressions by Wukong in his very fancy armor that he has in the cover, that he loses in the second book. Kind of his fall from grace as he gets imprisoned and then becomes basically a bodyguard. Like I said, a lot of texture, like everything feels very the dirt feels really earthy. These clouds, they look like very light, fluffy, like very spotty, just the way they look like they're applied with a paintbrush. I think this is digital, but I could definitely be wrong. I can't really tell. It's painterly regardless of what its actual medium is. A lot of the things just kind of feel like they have the right texture, if you get what I mean. Let me see if I can find a good example here. Well, that's the sharp contrast between the lines on the rocks and the clouds in the background, I think, would be a decent example. But I really just think he works with a lot of... Wow, the painting aspect really helps with the texture, I think. Also, there's just pretty much just rocks right now. Let me flip to a second book so I can see if I can get something that's not just rocks. Oh, water. I always love to look at water in comics and kind of look at how different artists portray it. Here's Chaiko's version. A lot of scratchy lines. Not very clear, but it is supposed to be a choppy wave with a kind of combat going on underneath it. I really like that ripple effect that's used there too. The art is just gorgeous. I'm not going to keep going on about it forever, but I really like it. I think that it's the strongest aspect of this book. Ooh, the color on that is beautiful. The story, I will say, I haven't read Journey to the West. I've just read this as an adaptation of it, and this is not a complete adaptation of Journey to the West. This is a part of a full story. It does not end in a satisfying way. A lot of the elements that the story has just feel like vignettes kind of shoved together to try and make a cohesive narrative that is this adventure tale where we're moving constantly from A to B with a bunch of little points in between, but they never really feel meaningful. Like some of our first obstacles on our way to the West don't teach us anything, and they don't impact any of the future vignettes that are going to also be obstacles on the way. So this does feel like a fairy tale-ish morality play with the themes that it has going. It's constantly like almost like a children's fairy tale where it's going to teach a very basic theme about morality and what's right and wrong, and Wukong is learning these things, but it never really feels like he is learning those things in any meaningful way, and they never seem to pop back up. He never seems to use what he's learned and just kind of reverts back to his selfish nature every time. And just not even in terms of themes, just in terms of the actual plot, I don't think that a lot of these vignettes seem to progress us forward. They don't feel like there's any actual arc to our characters or our story. In the second volume, after 150 pages, probably about 30 or so pages into the second volume, so about 180 pages into this story, I finally felt like there's some real drama happening. There's some real progression. This seems like something that's very important to the story. It's going to really elevate it and push it to the next level, and we're going to go into our next arc of this story. And then it ended and turned out to just be another vignette that we didn't really return to. And although it was more dramatic and more impactful in the moment than the others, it had no more importance in the grand scheme of the story. And that brings me to my main drawback with this book is there is no ending to this book. Having not read Journey to the West, I did have to look up and see if there is a meaningful, satisfying ending to the book, and there does seem to be, but this adaptation does not have that. This adaptation ends with the ending of a vignette and then saying Sun Wukong went on to have many other adventures, moving this Buddhist monk to the West, and he kept getting into crazy stuff, and he literally flies into the sunset. It doesn't even allude to the actual ending, so it doesn't necessarily preclude itself from a third volume, but I have seen zero indication of a third volume being made. I have no idea if there will be a third volume, but I will say, wow, the coloring on this is gorgeous. holy fire kind of deal. The first book ended in a way that kind of smoothly transitioned directly to the second book. The second book ends in a way that feels like a storyteller chopping off the story and kind of cutting it off way too early. I don't actually think there's going to be a third volume, just from what I've looked up and from what I can tell from this book. There doesn't actually seem to be... I'm sorry if you can hear my dog in the background. Hopefully it's not gross. There doesn't seem to be any lead up to a third volume, and I think they published this all at once because it's the complete package. So they would have already published a third book. And that really just kind of stains the entire thing for me. It really kind of ruins the entire experience for me because I really enjoyed this book from what I was getting, but I really didn't love it on any deeper level than a goofy adventure book, and that's all it turned out to be. It's just an adventure book that kind of it ends very abruptly and has not much else going for it. If you love mythology, this would be great for you. It's a good kids book as well. The art is beautiful, absolutely beautiful, and I love everything about the art. I think there was zero problems storytelling wise, but just the nature of the book just ending like that kind of shoots it in the foot, and it's not necessarily something I would write home about. Yeah, I don't want to keep going on about it. A good story has an ending to me, and this has none, and so I hardly consider it to be a story. I consider it to be kind of a bunch of short stories with a recurring cast. But if you're looking for any plot progression, character arcs, things like that, unfortunately, you're not going to find it here. I'm probably going to be doing a giveaway here soon with some of my books and just kind of giving them out to viewers. This out of a big stack, and this might be in the stack. I haven't decided if I want to keep these or not yet. I did kickstart them, so I feel like I should because I waited a long time for them, and I did enjoy reading them, but I just don't know if I have room for them on my shelf. We'll figure that out when I get to the giveaway, but keep an eye out for that. Before I be done here, I also used to be part of a podcast called See-Through Panel. My buddy Fahed still does the podcast, so if you look up See-Through Panel on any podcast provider, Spotify, we're also on YouTube here, and Pocket Cast, whatever. Look up See-Through Panel. He's still doing the show. He talks to a lot of indie comic creators about indie comics, and it's really cool to see their perspectives and to get a deeper look into the creation of comics and kind of the analysis of comics. So he does a great job, and he's getting ready to do another season of the podcast, so check that out, please. I'll put a link in the description for a way to support him as well, because he is awesome and he does a great job. So thanks a lot for watching, guys. Peace.